have a video coming up soon about the mega region that Portugal is beginning to form, stretching along the country's coast and practically connecting Lisbon and Porto through suburban areas. As an example, in that video, I mentioned other mega regions throughout the world, many of which being in the US. There's 11 of them, and within them live a crazy 78% of the US's total population. That's almost 260 million people. So in this video, we're going to take a look at those. First, as a reminder, what is a megaregion? A megaregion, also called a megalopolis or supercity, is a set of metropolitan areas which are perceived as a continuous urban segment because they grow so much that they reach into each other. People from each can work and or live in neighboring connected cities, and so they consequently share systems of transportation, an economy, resources, and many other things. It's interesting because its predecessor, Metropolis, referred precisely to a similar thing, but at a smaller scale. The 1832 definition describes its meaning as a very large, heavily populated urban complex. While a metropolis perhaps connects smaller urban areas into a big one, a megalopolis connects several metropolises themselves together. And this happens a lot across the United States. This fantastic map, which due to not being available in vector format, I had to recreate manually for the thumbnail of the video, shows us which they are, each a colored group, as well as their respective populations, how big the circles within them are. Some areas such as Florida's or Texas are contained within their own states, but most of them cross state borders into their neighbors, such as the Great Lakes or the Northeast, with some even crossing international borders like Cascadia in the Pacific Northwest, reaching into Canada, or the Gulf Coast and the Mexican Gulf, reaching into Mexico itself. So first, let's go through the map and list out these mega regions of the US, learning where they are, and then we will learn a little more about each of them. Now, before we keep going, a quick word from today's sponsor, InVideo. InVideo is a tool that allows you to turn your idea into video using AI. All you have to do is write your prompt, wait a couple of minutes, and it generates an entire video for you, included with footage, a custom script, and voiceover. Then you select the audience, look, and feel, as well as the platform you're planning to upload it to. You can review the video, and if it doesn't fit your idea, you can just regenerate it. If there's only a couple details that you don't like, you can make micro edits, like adding a line to the script. You can also use this prompt box to ask the AI to make edits for you, like changing the aspect ratio. When you're done, you just export it, and if you register with a paid account, all the watermarks are removed, and you're given access to millions of royalty-free stock footage clips and human-sounding voiceovers that would otherwise cost you hundreds of dollars if you sourced them individually.
Imagine, if you will, a world uncharted, unknown territories whispering promises of wealth and power.
Another cool feature they have, if you don't like the stock voices, is a voice cloning tool that allows you to use your own voice in the narration. You can get started with InVideo AI for free and create up to 4 videos, but with a watermark. If you want to remove the watermark, you can upgrade to a paid plan, which starts as low as $20 a month using the link in the description. Now, back to the video. Let's start it alphabetically since we need an order. First, here in blue in the south, within the state of Arizona, we have the adequately called Arizona Sun Corridor, which briefly extends into Mexico. Then the Cascadia megaregion, which according to this map includes these very distant cities in neighboring interior states, but excludes others like Boise in Idaho. We'll learn more about why and what's included in each further ahead. This one includes Washington's coast, as well as the northern coast of Oregon, and stretches into Canada too, with Vancouver and Victoria. Next, we have the Florida megaregion, which does not cover the entire state, excluding the Panhandle and several mostly rural counties to its east, but almost all of the entire state is included. And this is a good moment to point something out that may be obvious but needs pointing out due to the way the map is made. Not all of this purple area is a city, otherwise Florida's peninsula would just be one giant urbanization. Cities are these areas in white with the circles around them. The purple connecting the areas consist of their connections and shared infrastructure. After that, in the western USA, we have the Front Range megaregion, which stretches across 3 states, vertically. The northern end of this megaregion starts in the Colorado-Wyoming area and moves down along the eastern face of the Rocky Mountains to the range's southernmost extent in New Mexico, incorporating the Santa Fe and Albuquerque metropolitan areas. Moving to one of the biggest megaregions in the US and the world, we have the Great Lakes megaregion, which extends into Canada as well. In fact, this area of Canada is the most populous in the country, with half of its population living there. Within the US, it includes Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, but also stretches into Pennsylvania, western New York, and even small parts of Kentucky, Missouri, Iowa, or Minnesota. Back in the south, the Gulf Coast megaregion covers precisely most of the US's Mexican Gulf Coast, its southern coast, reaching into northeast Mexico. It covers the entirety of the coastal areas of Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, even reaching slightly into Florida's Panhandle. It's also the only case where two megaregions intersect in Houston, Texas, which belongs to both. It intersects precisely with the Texas Triangle, which forms a triangle, and for some reason includes the geographically detached Oklahoma City Tulsa Metropolitan Corridor in Oklahoma. And next we have the Northeast megaregion, the United States' original megalopolis. Since it was the first one, it's sometimes called the Boston-Washington Corridor because it stretches from Massachusetts through New York City to Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Moving to the west coast, there's the Northern California megaregion around San Francisco, San Jose, and Sacramento, which slightly stretches into Nevada by including their portion of Lake Tahoe. California has another megaregion in the south, the last on our list here, called precisely the Southern California megaregion, bigger than the northern one and existing between Los Angeles and San Diego, stretching into Nevada through the Las Vegas Valley, as well as the Tijuana area in Mexico. And I almost forgot this other one, the Piedmont Atlantic, which stretches from Alabama to northern Georgia and the Carolinas. Those are the 11 megaregions of the US, and like I mentioned at the start, within them live 78% of the country's population. Plus, that's data from 2010, and each of them had projected growths ranging between 9 to 40% by 2025. More recent projections point to these being home to more than 80% of the nation's population and close to 90% of its economy by now. Furthermore, if you look at the map, you can see that many are close to each other, and if they continue to grow and expand, they might intersect and unite amongst them. Just like the Metropolis United Urban Areas and the Megalopolis United Metropolis, maybe we'll soon have something like Gigalopolis, which united several megalopolis. The Great Lakes are almost meeting with the Northeast and Piedmont Atlantic. The Gulf Coast could soon reach into Florida's, and the two megaregions of California might connect as well. If we go back to that county map, we can see that if we use administrative borders, California's two and the two in the Northeast already connect. So now let's learn a little about each of them individually. The Arizona Sun Corridor had 5.5 million people in 2010. Its 2040 projection is for that value to double to 10 million. It is comparable to the whole state of Indiana in both size and population, which opens up the argument of whether or not a border readjustment should be made, so that these urban centers become their own states and have proportional congressional representation. Its population is composed of 5 metropolitan areas: Phoenix, Tucson, Prescott, Sierra Vista Douglas, and Nogales. This additional map from the RPA's report itself shows us the counties that belong to each megaregion, which provides a more precise view of their boundaries. Cascadia, also known as the Pacific Northwest, exists between the Pacific Ocean and the Rocky Mountains roughly. Its population was 12.4 million in 2010, and the projection for 2025 is 13.5 million, which is 4% of the country's total. It includes the cities of Abbotsford, Eugene, Portland, Salem, Seattle, Tacoma, Spokane, Vancouver, and Victoria, the last two being in Canada. This zoomed in map shows us how, despite there being large population concentrations within the city themselves, there's no contiguous mega-urban connection between them, just patches of urbanization and joint infrastructures as a result of their close proximity. Florida's is essentially the whole state minus the Panhandle. Its projected population for 2025 is 21.5 million people, which would equate to 6.4% of the country. The reason why it doesn't expand into the Panhandle is interesting and speaks to the cultural difference that exists between these regions. Alabama has throughout history claimed Florida's Panhandle as its own due to cultural proximity. Florida is the only state, perhaps along with New Jersey, where the vast majority or even entirety of their territory is within a megalopolis region. The Front Range, also known as the Southern Rocky Mountain Front, has a population of 5.5 million people, according to the latest data, 1.6% of the US total. There's not much to say about it. They are a set of large cities, united by railway and highways, and they interact closely in their daily life and economy. The Great Lakes are next, and they're really just a gigantic region. In 2010, they had 55.5 million people, and the 2025 projection was 60 million, but now in 2024, they already surpassed it and are at a whopping 85 million inhabitants. That's a quarter, 25% of the entire population of the US. However, this number goes down if you limit the count to those that live in the direct basin or coastline of the lakes themselves, 35 million, but the defined megaregions extend far past that. Its largest metropolitan area is Chicago, with around 10 million people, but the largest city is actually outside the US, in Toronto, Canada, at 2.8 million. Speaking of percentages, as a fun fact, the 5 Great Lakes that give the region its name contain 1/5 of the world's surface fresh water. In the Gulf Coast megaregion, the projection for 2025 is 16 million, almost 5% of the national total. It's hard to find exact counts because when you search for the Gulf Coast, you get the addition of the entirety of all states that have their coast there, not necessarily the megaregion. Northern and Southern California's megaregions have a total of 12.5 and 23.7 million people, respectively, 3.7% and 7% of the US total, respectively too. In the North, in 2018, the region had a local GDP of 1.2 trillion, 6% of the country's national GDP. In the South, the counties of Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino are the 5 most populous, also in the entire state, and being among the top 15 most populous in the US overall. Piedmont Atlantic includes the Atlanta, Birmingham, Charlotte, Memphis, Nashville, Raleigh-Durham, and Greensboro-Winston-Salem High Point metropolitan areas, containing 12% of the country's population. It's currently the fastest growing megaregion in the US, which is creating problems due to its unprepared infrastructure. They are a subset of the culture of the southern United States, and mainly a combination of the cultures of Georgia and North Carolina, as these 2 states have the greatest populations of the region, which brings about an interesting topic of how certain states' cultures might begin to merge, prioritizing those that are most relevant within the megaregions. Moving to the northeast Atlantic coast, we have the Northeast Megaregion. It extends from Massachusetts in the north to Washington, D.C. in the south, going through and connecting many of the U.S.'s most populated cities, such as New York City, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. 2010 figures pointed to already 50 million living there, over 17% of the country's total, in an area that is equivalent to under 2% of the total territory. Many people in this megaregion live in one city and work in another due to the close connections between them. And finally, the Texas Triangle. It contains the state's 4 largest cities, Austin, Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, and San Antonio. Its 2020 population estimate was 20.8 million, 6.2% of the country. Interestingly, the Texas Triangle can be considered one of the more politically left-wing areas in Texas due to the anchoring cities and the fact that urban centers tend to lean more Democrat in recent elections. In addition to these, there are also other major cities and major urban areas that aren't considered megaregions by the Regional Plan Association, who made the map they used here. They are the American Southwest around El Paso in Texas, Hawaii around Honolulu and its suburbs, Kansas around Wichita, Missouri around Springfield, the Mississippi Valley across many states that the river travels through, Kentucky connecting Lexington, Fayette, Richmond, and Frankfort, and the South Atlantic coast, as well as upstate New York. Why they were left out is unclear, but the obvious reasons would be that they aren't big enough or that they're a large set of urban regions, but without the same type of shared infrastructure or common policies. So, those are the megaregions of the United States. Do you live in any of them? Have you ever visited? And what do you think about this topic? Do you agree with the criteria that is used to form these megaregions? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to subscribe if you want to catch future ones, and I will see you next time for more general knowledge.